Hello guys, hello tigers, and welcome back with another lesson about programming language C# course that produced from A to Z for Learning channel. This is Nazar Al-Wattar with you. Today we are going to learn about new concepts and about new technical terms. Some of you have heard about these terms, and maybe some of you didn't have a clear meaning about these things. Today we have the assemblies, another steps that our code will transfer to this format of files in its journey from writing to execution. So the question is, what is assemblies? Assemblies is kinds of files that will be produced from common intermediate language. So let us go back a little bit to the previous video. After converting our code from C# code level to the next level, we will get another code that we have talked about it in the previous video. This type of code called common intermediate language. As we have said in the previous video, it doesn't have any specific characteristics, and you cannot specify this code is associated with operating system or it's associated with another programming language, because all programming languages will transfer their code to this similar code format. Then these files that introduced from the common intermediate language will called assemblies or an assembly. Then the question is, what does it contain? What does the assembly contain inside it? Assembly files contains two types of files, some of them important and essential, and every application should contain these files, and some of them not essential, it's just optional, and may or may not your application contain these kinds of files. Let us start with the most significant files, and every application should have or must have these kinds of files. First of all, the execution application file, which end with the extension .exe. These kinds of files, you don't need anything to execute these kinds of files, and you can execute these kinds of files under Windows environment. Just double click and it will execute the code that it has inside it. Another kind of files, they called library files. They end with the extension .dll. These kinds of files has the libraries that your application has used during the writing code in C#. These kinds of files, we will learn how to create them, we will learn how to use them, we will learn also in this course, and through this series of videos, we will learn how to edit these files and to reuse the code inside these files. We will learn everything about the DLL files, and also we will teach you how to build your own library for your own applications, because right now we will use the libraries that the Visual Studio will create it for us. But when we will move and we will reach a little bit advanced level, we will teach you how to create your own library for your own applications and how to use this library in many applications. Not in one application, but in many applications. You can reuse this library, and it is very useful, and we will see that. As we said always, just stick with us and you will learn about libraries. Another kind of files is the metadata or meta information files. These kinds of files has the information about the information that your application has it. So it's information about information. These kinds of files will help your application to stand alone without need any applications or any other applications to support your applications. These kinds of files will make your program as a self-descriptive. In this way, you will avoid many problems that many other applications will fall in it when they will use another platforms or another framework. For example, in the past, developers always fall in one mistake or in one problems, which is not has the ability to add the required files to the registry folder for the operating system. This is a big problem for any developers, because if you didn't add the required files that your applications will use it, you will not be able to run this application and you will not be able to do anything because the operating system denied you to add these kinds of files. With the .NET framework, they had solved this problem because adding the metadata files has solved this problem for you, and there is no need to add any files to the registry folder for your operating system. Now we have done with the required and essential files. Let us move forward to the next step to see what is the optional files that may or may not your application will contain during the execution level. These kinds of files, called resources, may or may not your application has resources during the executions. These resources divided into two types, and maybe there's another kind of resources. But these two kinds of your resources files are pictures and sounds. So maybe you will include your applications with some pictures, or may your applications will contain some sound files, or may not. Therefore, these kinds of files are optional, and there is no need to contain these kinds of files in every applications. Now, let me summarize for you what we have learned from this lesson. Then, the next step for your code transformations process will be convert the C# code to Common Intermediate Language, and this kind of files or code will store it in an assembly files, or what they call it assembly. The assembly files has many types of files. Some of them essential, you cannot lose them. Some of them optional, may or may not your application have this kind of files. The essential files, we have three types of them. Execution application files, .exe, end up with .exe, .dll files, or the libraries files, and we will teach you how to deal with these kinds of files, how to create them, how to edit them, how to reuse them, or how to build your own library. And the last one from the essential kinds of files is the meta files, or meta information files, which is information about your information that included with your applications. And storing these kinds of files will make your applications to be self-descriptive, and there is no need to add any files to your registry that for your operating system, and that has solved the problem for many developers, which is another benefit and another advantage to add to .NET Framework advantages. This is the essential files that every applications has written with the C# programming language should contain. The optional files, it's the resources files. May or may not your applications contain these kinds of files, which is pictures and sounds. This is the assemblies files, and this is what they contain. We have done now with assemblies. See you in the next lesson about programming language course. See you.